What's up guys, Shay Stevens here, PDGA number 77522, and today we're checking out the SimonLine Prototype Balance. Let's get to it. So the newest offering in the SimonLine isn't quite ready for a stock release yet, but MVP is giving fans the opportunity to get their hands on some prototypes in this year's Gyropalooza box, which is a pretty cool way to distribute it. Now, I'm sure by now you've heard about all the drama over the name Balance. I think me and Mr. Beast are the only two YouTubers who haven't talked about it yet, and I will spare you because I know you've heard enough already. It just seems like MVP is confident in their trademark that they will get the name, so we're looking forward to the stock release of the Balance, probably early spring. Basically, they said the prototype runs came out a little more overstable than they intended, and these boys are pretty beefy. We don't have official flight numbers yet because, one, this isn't the intended finished result, and two, it's a prototype, so no flight numbers to share on the Balance yet, but let's take a look at some side-by-sides and see how it compares to some existing molds. And starting off with the side-by-side comparisons, we have both prototypes up here. So we have a 176 gram on the left up against a 177 gram on the right. And that 177 gram on the right, if you notice, the parting line does seem to be a little bit higher. And the nose of the disc overall is a bit higher too. So there is some variance here in these prototypes, which is to be expected. That's why they're prototypes. But pretty close. And I'm guessing MVP will have it sorted out by the time the stock release comes in. So, some variance, but acceptable. And for our next comparison, we have the Balance up against a Proton Deflector on the right. Deflector, higher parting line, higher nose. This thing is an overstable beast, as most of you know. However, you do got to note the bottoms of the disc, how it finishes from the nose to the bottom. And I feel like the Balance does have a bit more of a blunt finish to it, especially with that added bead. It is going to have significant drag as it slows down. So I'm expecting it to be pretty overstable, maybe not quite as much as a Deflector, but somewhere in that neighborhood. Moving along, we're putting the Balance up against a Prism Proton Pyro. So looking at the nose parting lines, Pyro has just a slightly higher parting line, I'd say. However, the bottom of the disc is pretty telling. The Pyro is known for its forward-pushing hyzers that gain that little extra distance at the end. The bottom of this Balance, though, again, really blunt, so I feel like it's going to definitely have more bite at the end compared to a Pyro. And wrapping up our comparisons, we have the Balance on the left up against a Neutron Runway on the right. So the Balance's nose a little bit lower, parting line is a little bit lower. But again, you gotta look at the bottom of these discs, and if you never noticed, the Runway's finish is pretty interesting. It's kind of got like that long, straight finish into a curve, which then again goes straight towards the bottom. Pretty overstable. I think these two are gonna be pretty comparable. Which, it makes sense. The Runway is slotted in between the Deflector and the Pyro, and that's where I think the Balance is gonna fall as well. Side note, guys, I know this is a review for the Balance, but if you're still looking for an overstable mid-range and the Pyro and the Deflector aren't doing it for you, check a Runway out. There was a run that came out, I heard, that were not as overstable as intended to be, but the latest run seems to be right on point. They are pretty beefy. Simon and Eagle were both messing around with them for a while, so they can handle some power and they have some good bite at the end. All right, so having talked to some of the other testers, I've heard descriptions of this disc as a crushed down Deflector or a domey Pyro, and I could definitely see those descriptions in holding this disc. I do feel, I do get a Deflector feel off it. I can kind of feel the Pyro too, yeah, I had to get to the field and throw this thing. So I went to Tamanin Park actually to throw this just because I wanted to guarantee field space. It's still sports season and sports teams are out there bright and early. So went to Tamanin to make sure I can get, a field to myself and throw. Conditions were pretty neutral, so nothing really affecting the flight of this disc other than me. So, sorry, it's best you can work with. But yeah, starting off, backhand hyzer, exactly what I thought. Just holds the angle, pushes forward on that hyzer until it gets to the ground. No signs at all flipping up. Now, on flat shots, you really got to focus on that flat part. I feel like the minute this just gets the hyzer, you start losing it off to the left. But if you can hit it nice and flat, you can stretch this guy out pretty far before it dumps out. It did remind me a bit of the Pyro, except I feel like it fades much harder at the end. On backhand Annie, you've heard me say it a million times, I love force flex shots with overstable discs, and this one did not disappoint at all. I could just crank on it, no fear whatsoever of turning and burning it, and just get those fun little S shapes out of it. Forehand, I am still hurt, guys, but I tried to grin and bear it and just throw two, and really fun on forehand, actually. It feels incredibly comfortable. If you like to keep a third finger out on the rim of the disc, this slot feels really nice. And I forgot to mention, too, this is a return to beaded mid-ranges. We haven't seen them since MVP brought production in-house. It feels really smooth. So there is a bead, but you don't have to worry about being abrasive. And if you like to keep that leading finger out on the edge of the disc for your forehands, it feels like it slots under this rim really comfortably. And that bead almost serves as like a backstop. So you can actually really pinch in there between your ring finger and your middle finger. So if you like that pinch point to get that little extra snap on it, this feels really nice. But overall, would I bag it? I'm tempted to, simply because I feel like I could actually dump the deflector and the pyro and cover it with this disc. I actually had my practice bag with me out at Tamanend, and I threw my Proton soft deflector and my fission pyro, and the Proton soft deflector basically came up about 10 to 15 short consistently, and the pyro went about 10 to 15 long consistently. So this kind of slots in between the two, and I feel like I can almost cover both shot shapes with this disc. The big downside, however, is, like I said, this is the prototype run, and the main run is supposed to be more understable, so there's going to be a limited quantity of these discs. So I wouldn't feel too great, trying to lean on this disc knowing that there is a finite supply of them. So that is the big deterrent, but I'm still going to throw it around a bit, have some fun with it. It's really great. I definitely recommend, guys, get a Gyropalooza box. They are a fun time. It's like you're guaranteed one of these, so you get a piece of history, and then I think it's 11 discs total, so it comes into like $10 a disc. Really great deal. You can usually flip some of them that you don't want to make some money back. And the cool thing is MVP usually throws in some real treats for you, like just prototypes, experimental stuff. They'll just toss it in some random boxes, and somebody gets a really cool pull. It's like trading cards. You should treat it like such. You'll pay the money for the box. Don't expect to get your money back, but you might get really surprised. So I highly recommend it. I believe Foundation Disc Golf still has a pre-order up, so please, if you're considering that, check them out. I'll throw a link in the description down below for you guys. But yeah, it's been my review of the SimonLine Prototype Balance. Thank you to MVP for sending them to me. I had a lot of fun with them. But with that, guys, I want to say thank you for all your support. If you have any questions for me, reach out. I'll do my best to answer them. Take care.
Thank you to my sponsors. For all your disc golf needs, check out Phoenix Discs and Foundation Disc Golf.